Hey, good morning and welcome to Breakthrough Walls. I'm Ken Walls and I am your host. And today we have a living legend on the show. This guy is, his name is Dan Altmire, and you may or may not know this, but if you've ever heard the phrase Dan the Man, it originated with him. So you are in for a real treat. Do me a favor and share this out everywhere possible. Share it out. Let's get a bunch of people on here. We're going to hear Dan's life story and hopefully inspire a bunch of people to make better choices. Here we go. All right, here we go. Let me bring Dan on the show. Dan, welcome.
Oh, thank you very much, Ken. Pleasure to be here today.
Glad to have you here, man. You are one of the OG members of my mastermind. You literally are. I think you were like number 3 that signed up for it years ago. And you've been very faithful and just a good dude. You're a good friend of mine and love the heck out of you, man. So I'm glad that
Thank you.
we got
The
you on
feeling's
here.
mutual.
Yeah. So Dan, as you know, I started this about 5.5 years ago, and it was literally to help people get unstuck in life. And um, I believe that people get stuck and they don't know what to do. They don't know which way to turn, and by hearing other people's stories, it helps them. So start with telling everybody where it all began for you. Where were you born and raised?
Well, I started off as a child.
Right. That's good.
Um,
Oh, I
but,
forgot to tell everybody. Dan thinks he's funny.
yeah, that was a Bill Cosby line, but he's been erased from the world. So anyway,
Yeah.
so I was born in Washington D.C., George Washington University Hospital,
Wow.
in 1951. So any of you who have a calculator that can do 3 digits, you can figure out how old I am. But
Wow.
so when I grew up in bouncing around. My parents were not having the greatest marriage in the world, and so I bounced back and forth between Washington D.C., Silver Spring, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania,
Wow.
and then ended up back in Montgomery County, Maryland, and Wheaton, Maryland, where I, from third grade on, kind of lived.
So your parents got divorced? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, they got divorced when I was 8 years old.
Okay. Okay. So you bounced around, you ended up back in by the way, Pittsburgh is an awesome town. I love Pittsburgh. I used to
Oh,
live
it
there.
is. And when I was a little kid, we we didn't have a whole lot of money, and it was the excitement was to go down to the river and watch them dump slag down the slag pile, molten slag, and it was like watching a fireworks.
What is slag?
What is slag? You don't know what slag is?
No.
Okay,
I
slag.
feel like that would be illegal today.
Probably, but I'd have to ask. They used to have like buckets of slag on the side of the road so people could throw it under their tires when it's snowed and stuff. But slag is the byproduct of producing steel. It's the runoff that's not steel, and so it's got some iron in it, some other things in it, and maybe some coal parts in it
And they
and stuff.
dumped that into the river?
Well, I don't know if they dumped it into the river, but it was right beside the river, and they'd have like
Oh,
a train that would come up along the track, and then
yeah.
the cars would flip the sides over, and then all this stuff would come tumbling down, and it would be red,
Wow.
gold, and bouncing and everything. And it was cheap entertainment. We only had
Yeah.
3 channels back in those days,
Right. Right.
and it was all black and white. So I mean,
Yeah.
you had
Yeah.
to have something.
Well, and that area is called Station Square, that down there where the rivers all meet. And there's a wonderful Sheraton down there at Station Square, and they serve the very best Sunday brunch in the world. Like,
Well,
yeah.
next
So
time I go up there for a Pittsburgh Pirates baseball game, they have a great stadium there,
yeah, they do.
and it looks right out over the point there.
Yeah.
And I'll have to check that out.
And the interstate runs literally right next to that stadium. It's like you feel like you can reach out and touch it. It's crazy.
Yeah,
Yeah, I love Pittsburgh. So you ended up back in Maryland. Um,
yeah,
and is that like in the DC area then where you
yeah,
were?
yeah.
Okay.
Just north of Washington D.C.
Okay. Okay. Hey, we
Uh,
have Charla Frost watching, by the way.
Hi,
So
Charla.
love Charla.
She's an
Um,
amazing lady.
so you were in Maryland. Is that like what grade were you in when you ended up back in
Well,
Maryland?
when I came back to this area, I was in third grade.
Okay.
So I went from third grade through 12th grade living in different places in Wheaton, but all in Wheaton. So
Okay.
I
Okay.
went to several different schools, but ended up graduating from Wheaton High School.
Mm,
And this Saturday, we are having our 55th high school reunion.
geez. That means you graduated about when I was born.
I graduated in 1969.
Okay, I was a year old. So wow. So you graduated there, and what happened after high, and what was it? I always wonder this. I always wonder like what happened as a child, or what person, what event, what thing took place that kind of um, pushed you into what you became as an adult. So, I know you said you went to college. What did you study, and what do you feel like happened as a child that pushed you in the direction you went as an adult?
Life pushed me where I went when I was in uh, high school and elementary school and what they called junior high school back in those days.
They still do.
Uh, around here is middle school.
Oh, that too. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but uh, I was a big history buff,
Okay.
and so when I went for my first year in college to the University of Rochester in Rochester, New York, or as we used to say, Rochester.
Yeah.
Um, I was uh, going there to study political science and history.
Okay.
And then I lived with my dad off campus. My dad lived in Pittsburgh with his second wife and my half brother and half sister. That's 2 people, by the way. Um, but
Wow. Thanks for that clarification.
I just wanted to make sure you said you weren't feeling real well today. I just didn't want that to go past you.
I got it. Yeah. Got
Yeah.
it.
Okay. So I'm sure if Morshower saw that, he would appreciate it.
I think that in today's world, that clarification might actually be necessary. So thank you for that.
Yeah, you're welcome. Anyway, so I lived at their house. I worked part time and went to the University of Rochester studying political science, and history. It was a great experience. I worked part-time at the greatest job an 18-year-old could have, aside from being a bartender, was I was I worked a toy store during Christmas sales time, and
Okay.
that was a lot of fun. I got to show people toys and all that kind of stuff, and
Right.
that was cool. And then at the end of that year, that season, they said, "We don't need you anymore. We love you. You did a great job. I got you set up with another company here in the mall that you can go to work for part time there." And so I went to work at a place called Richard's. Um, what was it? Richard's Stationery,
Okay.
and worked there. And, that's like a Hallmark store type of thing.
I thought you were gonna say it was like selling lingerie or something, but okay.
No, no, no. Yeah, that would have been another 18-year-old's perfect job.
Yeah, right. Right.
But unfortunately, that opportunity didn't come to me. But anyway, so I was working, I was going to school. I performed as um, a solid C student in my first year. And in August, when I came back home for the summer, back down to Wheaton, my dad called me up in the end of August and said, um, "I was expecting for you to get better grades and get a scholarship the next year. We don't have any money. Don't come back."
Oh wow. Thanks, Dad.
Yeah. So the guy, I kind of went, "Oh my gosh, what am I going to do?" So then I realized my mom and stepfather didn't have uh, the funds to support me going back to University of Rochester, which was an expensive school. And so I needed to figure out how I was going to continue to go to school. So I picked up a couple of odd jobs and went back to University of Maryland night school. At the time, it was called University College. Now it's called Global Campus. Um, and did that for a short period of time. Got a job at the Bethesda Naval Hospital on the roads and grounds crew,
What?
and and recognized that I was going to. And when I started pushing concrete,
Yeah.
uh, as in one of the jobs, I said, "Gee, this isn't what I want to do for the rest of my life." And
Yeah.
um, I went back to school, and was scrambling around trying to find jobs and money. And then when I turned 21, I had always been driving my friends around in my car. Like I inherited kind of a really big car from my grandmother when she passed away, and it was ugly
Right.
and and everything, but it carried a lot of people. And of course, we didn't have seat belts then and all that kind of stuff, so we piled a lot of people in the car. Um, anyway, I was always the designated driver, and or most of the time. And so when I turned 21, somebody said, "Why don't you get a job as a cab driver?"
There you go.
There you go. And cab driving gave me flexibility, and gave me cash in my pocket all the time.
Yeah.
And I learned so much. I continued to go to school during that time, but I, I I learned so much from the people that I drove in the cab. I learned how to talk to people. I learned how to, uh, a lot of stuff from a lot of people that I didn't know in my upbringing.
Right. Right.
And I met people from all
Yeah.
economic groups, and from people that were government officials all the way to people who were uh, getting picked up at 9:45 so they could get to the liquor store when it opens at 10 o'clock.
Wow.
Wait
Yeah.
for me out here. I'll be right back out. That kind of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. And that was
And
in Maryland.
that was in Maryland. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so it was a great experience. And one day I saw this ad for bus drivers. They were starting a bus system in Montgomery County, Maryland, and it was going to pay $2.87 an hour. And I was
Right
like,
on.
wow, 287. That's
That's a lot.
amazing.
Yeah.
That's
Heck yeah.
amazing. I can get 287 and they'll pay tuition reimbursement.
Beautiful.
And I'm there like, wow, that is really great. And I went and
I mean, that's around $90 or so a week. Maybe 100. No, it's closer.
That's about 100, almost $120.
Yeah. Dude, that is like,
and the opportunity for overtime. Plus they were going to pay for college, So I'm like, this is great.
Yeah.
So I went there, and within 4 months, I was promoted to be a dispatcher. I had done some cab dispatching, and this was a demand responsive type of thing where they would go to people's houses and pick people up with the bus. And so I understood how to dispatch that, and I was not shy. Did you know I was shy? I was not shy about letting them know that ways that they can improve things.
Yeah.
And I got promoted to a dispatch position, and then about a year later, they closed that dial-a-ride demand responsive system because budget cuts.
Yeah.
And I had a choice to become a police dispatcher, or go back and drive a bus at the route system that we had in Silver Spring, Maryland.
Right.
So I said, I'm not a very good typist, and so I'd rather just go drive the bus.
Yeah.
And there was also some talk that they would be putting a route system back up in where I was at in Gaithersburg, Maryland, the upper part of Montgomery County. And so I said, well, maybe I can get back there. So I drove a bus around Silver Spring for about 9 months.
Wow.
And they decided at that point to open up a new bus system up in the upper part of Montgomery County. And a year and a half into my career with Montgomery County, I became the manager of half of the system of the bus system.
Wow.
So still don't exactly understand how all that happened, but it's about passion. And Napoleon Hill says it, that if you work hard and always do more than is expected from you, good things are going to happen to you.
Yeah.
And that happened to me. And so I spent, I built that system over the next, 12 years.
Oh my God. Wow.
And it was great. I actually had lunch with some retired bus drivers that used to work with me yesterday.
Wow. So hold on, you spent 12 years doing that. I'm assuming you made more than $2.87 an hour once you became a manager of half the system.
We were up to $2.90.
Right. Right. And this is what year was that? That would have been
1975 is when I got my first job there, and and 1977, I guess it was early 1977 was when we I got that promotion to be the transit manager.
Wow. That's pretty amazing. So now, I don't want to fast forward too much, but that's not what you do today. So what happened? Why did you leave the busing system?
Well, I really enjoyed growing the bus system. It was a lot of fun. It brought really great people on to that were bus drivers. We we had a great culture uh, because we believed in the mission of the organization. And I preached that over and over and over again. That our job was to make sure that if somebody's standing at a bus stop, that a bus is there on time, not ahead of time, not oh, we couldn't do it because there wasn't anybody to drive the bus. If we needed somebody to drive the bus and there wasn't anybody to drive the bus, I drove the bus.
Right.
And people needed to get off and we couldn't find anybody to help them get off, then I would drive the bus. Um, and we worked together as a team, and we had amazing uh, uh, what do they call those things? Uh, the things that were important about the organization, the key indicators. That was the word I was looking for.
Yeah.
Key indicators of on-time performance, safety, um, absenteeism. We were off the charts as like the best. I had a guy from a company called Booz Allen called me up one time. He was doing a survey of systems all across the country, and he said, "How do you do that?" And I said, "I don't. We just all believed in, and we worked together, and that was what it was all about."
That's
But
awesome.
as I was working in that process, um, I was still living my life, and I was when I started work there. I was single. Actually, I met my wife when I was teaching a class on the bus routes.
Wow.
They were opening a big shopping mall there, and she was getting a part-time job so she could buy a new car. She was getting a part-time job at the information desk, and she was um, uh, in the classroom learning about the buses. But
Wow.
I could tell that she needed some more tutoring.
Right.
So I
Right.
invited her to get some additional tutoring.
One on one.
One, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
That's very kind of you.
I, anything for the cause.
Right. Right.
Uh, so that's where I met my wife. Actually,
Wow.
our friend Cynthia Mannion,
Yeah.
um, she was at the opening of that mall
Wow.
as a model. I
Wow.
didn't know her then. I didn't know. I don't even remember
That's
models being there at the
insane.
opening of that mall, but she was there, and it's a small world.
After all,
After
it
all, yeah.
is.
Please don't
So,
think.
so, my question was just a reminder. When did
I'm
you
getting there.
leave?
I'm getting there. I'm getting there.
Like,
So I was in addition to running that system, I'm a multitasker. I started selling real estate part time,
okay.
and I was doing okay for a part time guy. And at a certain point, I started getting phone calls from previous clients or people that I had worked with in that capacity, and they would ask me, Dan, I need some investment advice. And I go, oh, great. You need to buy a townhouse, a condo, a multi family unit? Want to buy a single family home as an investment? What do you want? No, I got this other investment that I'd like to talk to you about. I'm going like, what do I know about those other investments?
Oh, right.
I mean, I can help you buy a house. I could tell you how to buy a bus, but I don't know about that. And like, why did you ask me? And they said, because I trust you.
Mm,
And if that had happened once or twice, I would have like, just thought it was just some kind of a, um, crazy thing. But it happened over and over again. And so I said, And then there was a guy at the office they, that was also working part time, the guy at the real estate office, who was just getting out of the military, and he was studying to be a certified financial planner. And I said, hey, that's pretty cool. How do you do that? And being a multitasker, I said, why don't I do that too? And so I started studying to be a CFP.
wow.
Uh, my insurance agent got wind of that and said, hey, why don't you partner with me? And after a while of, I really enjoyed growing the bus system. I didn't really enjoy the day-to-day mundane
Right.
over and over again. Especially not I. Somebody asked me this yesterday at the lunch with the Ride On people. That's the name of the bus system, Ride
Yeah.
On. They said,
That's very original.
yeah, it was then, Ride On. Uh, but they asked me, why did you leave? And the reason I left was that I had a series of new bosses
Yeah.
above me, and each time I got a new boss, we had to go back and uh, resolve problems that we'd already solved in the process. And I said, do I really want to spend the rest of my life doing this? And so
Right.
uh, my wife and I, after we had our second child, uh, my daughter Lindsay, we had a heart-to-heart conversation, and I said, I really think that this is what I want to do, and she was fully supportive. And we took off into the world of financial services. So
Wow.
that's my journey to the financial services business. Started that part time in 1986 and full
Jeez.
time August 1987.
Wow. And you, let's see, at that point, you would have been um,
Old.
36.
Yeah, 36, 37. Right.
Yeah. That's not old. So you've been doing this for a while then. So talk about some of the, um, I mean, I, I don't know how many presidencies you've lived through. Um, but I would like for you to talk a little about what you've seen change. I know that yesterday they cut 0.5% on the interest rate, and I saw a post by Grant Cardone talking about some crazy stuff about that topic. And so, I would like to hear your take on that. I mean, a CFP, for those watching that don't know, a lot of it is insurance and positioning yourself properly with the right insurance. Am I right?
Yep.
And
Well,
then
and investments and
and
everything else.
investments. Right, right. So talk about some of the changes, because I'm sure there's been times in your career where no matter what you did, you couldn't stop the money from flowing into you. And there's been times in your career where it's like, oh God, are we going to make it? Like, right. So talk
Well,
about,
that's the life of an entrepreneur. Yeah.
right. So it is. So talk about some of the things you've seen, um, in your years of doing this that's changed, and what you think some of the causes of these investment changes and the volatility or fluctuation of the of all of it.
Okay. So when I was selling real estate in the late 70s, early 80s, in the
That
late
was in the
70s,
1900s for those of you that don't know what he's talking about.
thank you. Um, Back before the turn of the century. Yes.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
In the 20th century.
And
Yeah.
in the 20th century. Right. So back in the 1970s and 80s, in the late 1970s, we were trying to sell houses with mortgage rates of 18%.
Right. Yep.
So people are freaking out with a 7% interest rate. And I understand that, because the buying power, I mean, we had a 10-year period where interest rates were incredibly low.
Yeah.
But, uh, you know, it, it palls in comparison of
Yeah.
what was dealing with that, because, it was just very unaffordable to buy homes in that case. And then,
In the
you
seven,
know,
you said the late 70s, right?
late 70s, early 80s,
Those were
beginning of
Jimmy Carter days.
those were Jimmy Carter days. I still have my cardigan sweater.
Oh my God.
I don't really have a
Okay,
cardigan.
good.
Okay.
Jeez.
But but uh, and then there were a lot of changes in the 1980s,
Yeah.
to the tax code, to interest rates. Interest rates started coming down, but it was a long, slow path to get to where we are today. I mean, even in the 1990s, we still had double-digit interest rates on a lot of loans, um, it was a long slide down, and then unfortunately, over the pandemic and beyond, we've had a spike in interest rates, because we've had a spike in inflation, and so what got us here? I'll get geeky for about 30 seconds here. And I think it was 1998. Um, they made a change in the tax law and the financial services law, where it used to be, from FDR days on, that banks did banking, insurance companies did insurance companies, security companies did security stuff, um, but they uh, um, they changed that law and allowed there to be flow with other things, and each one of those organizations uh, didn't have the same limitations on them, and we ended up having some challenges around that, like in 2008 when we had the mortgage crisis, um, and there's still things back and forth about that even today. If we could go back to those days, it would be. I think it would be a simpler thing, because you would know who to go to for what,
Yeah.
and who you could trust, um, on the thing. Not that any of these organizations are not trustworthy, but it was just a little simpler back in those days.
You
Um,
know, I just went over to Grok on X, which is Elon's very honest and non-biased AI. I don't even use Google anymore because, well, for many reasons. But um, and I just said, what was while you were talking there? I said, what was the national debt in 1980? You want to guess?
I, I don't know, $300 million, $300 billion.
it was 909 billion dollars,
Okay.
and it's 35.3 trillion dollars now. That's a big leap. Some of the things that cause these problems with inflation is, I mean, I've heard Elon talk about it, and a lot of other people way smarter than me, um, is government overspending causes inflation. And
That's certainly part of it. There are other factors that,
yeah,
supply chain and
yeah, 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 yeah,
and other issues, uh, demand,
yeah,
uh,
yeah,
and the like. But whether we have oil or not, whether we have electricity or not. Um,
yes, those things
I
definitely
mean,
make a
one of the things
difference.
that scares me for the future is, with AI and electric cars and moving everything to the grid. Our grid is not built to do that, and nobody's talking about how we're going to change that grid.
Yeah,
Uh, and I guess that's the easy way to get out of not having to deal with it. You just don't talk about it, and then it becomes a crisis, and then you become a savior when you take care of it.
yeah, yeah,
Um, but there are a lot of factors around inflation.
yeah.
But if you spend more than you take in, the bill will come due at some point.
Well,
And,
unless
and
you
we
can,
actually have
unless
a
you can,
higher national debt than we have a GDP. So we're
right.
actually more
Yeah.
in debt than we have that. So
Way more.
wait a minute, yeah,
Yeah. But I think that, I think, I mean, again, I listened to a lot of what Elon Musk talks about. He's addressing the grid. He talks about it,
yeah. But
and
I'm talking about
yeah.
you know
Yes.
the politicians.
Yes. Yes.
I'll give you a couple of interesting examples and then kind of take it back to where I am right
Yeah.
now, my,
Yeah.
my business and my
Yeah.
life. Um, so in the 1990s, we saw special after special on PBS, on 60 Minutes, everything else. What's going to happen when the big hurricane hits New Orleans? And we need to change the infrastructure so that it doesn't wipe it out and everything
Right.
else. And then nobody did anything. And then what happened? The
A
big
big
hurricane
hurricane
came.
hit. Yeah.
Yeah. And boom, it was a disaster. It was a huge disaster, but it wasn't because it came out of nowhere.
Right.
Everybody knew about it. They just didn't want to act. It wasn't comfortable to act. Well, it was a lot less comfortable when uh, the city was underwater and people were being bused and flown
Yeah.
to Houston and other places like that.
Yeah.
It a beautiful, wonderful city, and it was that didn't have to happen. Uh, about
Well,
about a year ago, a big, 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 big container ship ran into a bridge right up here in Baltimore
yeah.
that was on one of the major thoroughfares, Route 95,
Yeah. I remember.
and crushed it. Okay. And the
Yeah.
whole thing came tumbling down. Unfortunately, there were 6 people working on it. It happened at night, but the 6 people died.
Mm.
But it could have been an incredible disaster because that's usually full of traffic.
Right. Right.
And it would have been a complete disaster. There are these little things called dolphins, and I don't mean porpoises or flipper.
Yeah.
For those of you who are old enough to remember who flipper is, okay. But they're barriers outside of the stanchions, the support beams of a bridge. there were just itty bitty little ones that were like a little square that had been put in before, but they were not enough to stop a huge container ship like that.
Right. Right.
They'd known about that. They could have spent the money to put those in.
Right.
They could have spent the money to require the boat, because that boat lost power, is why
Right.
it ran into it. That they could have had a requirement in the Port of Baltimore that every container ship had to have tugboats taking them out,
Right. Right.
but they didn't. And we had a crisis because it wasn't comfortable to make that decision.
Right.
Okay. I just wrote a book about long-term care.
Hold it. Put it back up. Hold it back up. Oh, it's reversed. Hold on.
It's reversed.
Let me hold my copy up. That's not reversed.
It's
Aging
not reversed.
gracefully.
Okay. Well, that you got the good copy then.
Right. I think it's your camera setting. That's all.
Yes,
No,
it
no
is my
biggie.
camera setting. Okay.
Yeah. No
But
biggie.
anyway, the somebody asked me in an interview a couple weeks ago, why don't people buy long-term care insurance? Why don't people have a long-term care plan in place? You know that 70% of the people over age 65 are going to need care at some point in the rest of their life. And yet only 14% of the people over 50 have a plan in place to protect themselves. That plan may include insurance, it may not include insurance, but they don't even have a plan. And it's 70%. If it's 70% chance of rain, you would be smart to take an umbrella.
Right.
But people tend to not make uncomfortable decisions. And the cost of that could be a crisis.
Well, your reference to New Orleans, though, I mean, obviously it was a genius that decided one day, hey, let's build a city right here in a bowl right next to where a lot of hurricanes come in on the water.
Well, that
But
was done. That was done in the 1700s.
I
You know,
know.
a little bit before I was born.
I know, but I'm thinking like, how do you, you talk about like it could have been prevented. How? I mean, the city's in a bowl. It's below sea level. And how do you prevent a hurricane from wiping it out? It was disastrous, and it has happened more than once. So how do you prevent something like that?
The Corps of Engineers had a plan, and
Oh,
they've implemented that plan since then,
okay.
or at least part of it.
Yeah.
So there were solutions,
Yeah.
and they have all those levees and
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
everything, and that a lot of them hadn't been reinforced and everything. It's like I talk to people, they say, well, I have a plan for long-term care. I did it 20 years ago. Well, I said, well, has anything changed in the last 20 years?
Right. Right.
The cost of long-term care, or where you live or where your family lives,
Right.
family members live. You need to update your plans
Right.
to make things work.
Yeah.
And so it's sometimes you have to take a little bit of discomfort looking at what could happen, and preparing for it, as opposed to waiting for it to happen and then saying, oh, poor me.
Right.
And,
Nick Ogilvy just said, actually, three more big storms and it will forever be underwater. Learned that on the History Channel last week, oddly enough. So, I mean, there's some things that you're just not going to prevent. And what you're talking about, I agree with. Eventually, you're going to be underwater or under dirt
yeah,
or whatever. And what's
well,
your
financially
plan?
underwater. Yeah.
Right.
Um, and by the way, they get a lot of storms in Holland, and they're underwater too. But they have for centuries kept that working. So there are ways. There's engineering ways to do it,
Yeah.
um, but are you willing to pay the price?
Right.
And
Right.
and make the decision. So
Right.
that and like you were saying, we're now $35 trillion in debt. How much is that going to cost? And so
Yeah.
there are trade-offs that you have to look at. Um, but thanks for that, Nick. The History Channel's a fun place to hang out.
Yeah.
Um, so anyway, um, I think that planning allows you, the hierarchy of needs. If you can take care of the the things at the bottom of the hierarchy of needs and make sure that, hey, if something like this happens, I've got a plan in place. Maybe it's not going to take care of everything, but at least I got a plan. You
Right.
don't have to be thinking about that all the time. Psychologically, it allows you to reach your destiny.
Right. Right. Yeah.
When I started writing this book, actually, I didn't start writing this book. I started writing another book. Thank you. Great looking book. Um, when I started writing that book, I was writing a book about making the most out of your longevity.
Yep.
Working title, significant longevity. And there were three principles to that. One principle was embracing your destiny. If you're here for a reason. And there's something that you can do to make the world a better place. And so, what is your destiny? Embrace that destiny. The second thing is build a legacy. And in the financial services business, they always talk about legacy being the money that you leave to the next generation. Hey, that's a nice thing to do, but there's other legacies that live beyond the money.
Yes.
And whether that's that you were a fantastic grandparent, or whether it was that you did charity work, that you were active in your church, whatever. If you leave a legacy that lives beyond you, you really made an impact in the world. And the third thing was assure your dignity. And what I realized in working with clients and talking to people and research for the book, so many people don't know what the options are for them in assuring their dignity in life. A lot of people don't even know there's a 70% chance they're going to need care. I think it's the other guy.
Yeah.
And nobody's ever had that happen in my family. Well,
Yeah.
who knows? The longer you live, the more opportunities you have to need care. So,
Well, and with
uh,
the advancement of medicine and
yeah,
AI and everything, people are living longer.
right,
It's that
right.
simple. Yeah.
And but so it's important to have that plan, and that's why I wrote this book, was to give people a a, a touch point of looking at what's available.
Right.
And it's, I don't know if you've had a chance to look at the book at all, but besides the beautiful cover, which you can
No,
show again, you can show that
I've
again.
not had a chance. I mean,
Okay,
I've had a chance. I haven't had the time to invest
right. No, I get it.
in reading
Not,
it.
but
There, I
there.
just read
This
it.
is it. You just
I
read it.
just now.
Fantastic.
I'm a
Good.
speed reader.
You are a speed reader. You're a brilliant man. You have artificial intelligence.
I do.
Uh, but Chat GPT has nothing on you. Uh, but
Uh,
but it's really a guide. It's just a guide to help people know what's available out there. What are the things, government programs, private programs, things, forms that you need, legal documents that you need as a basis so that you can have that protection at the bottom of your triangle so you can focus on the rest of building your legacy, and embracing your destiny.
I think, a couple of things. Number one, I think, everybody's going to leave a legacy. Everybody. Um,
Yeah, is it a positive legacy or is it a negative?
right. And so, excuse me, people like Glenn Morshower and people like Doug Wing and Charlotte Frost and Sandra Spurgeon and so many people that I know and love and I think about the legacy that they are leaving, when they because um you know nobody gets out alive, so that acceptance of that fact is kind of important. But like I think about these massive legacies that people have created. Doug with his father's company, and then Doug helping
Oh
turn it
yeah,
into the third largest ladder company in the world, and all of these and they're amazing legacies, right?
yeah,
And and they also plan for the end, right? They
right.
plan for, they're ready for the day that it all comes to a halt and their time on
Well,
earth
and
is
the
done.
legacy also, using Doug Wing as an example, um, is that Doug wrote a book about his dad
Yeah,
that brought the principles that his dad used to build that business
right,
to the world.
right.
Otherwise, it was lost. So
Yeah,
part of your legacy is bringing the legacy of previous generations, or other pieces of knowledge that are out there, so that people can connect with that.
right, right. Yes, I agree. So Dan, what was look, I'm just getting ready to ask this question. What number one, Nick wants to know how to get the book, but I want to know before well, give me the website address, that because I know you're making a special offer on it right now. That's probably less expensive than say Amazon or whatever. But what is the website address?
HTTPS
Yeah,
colon black slash slash black.
yeah.
Okay, and then
Just the
it's
web address.
okay. Bespoke, BESPOKE dash LTC, like in long term care. Bespoke dash long term care LTC .com.
Got it. Okay. So I'm
And
gonna
anybody
scroll.
that wants to get the book for $5, and
Yeah.
that includes shipping.
Wow.
$5, you can type in on the coupon area to apply that, and it's Walls 500.
Wow. Is it all caps walls or does it matter?
It doesn't matter.
Okay. Well, that's awesome. So if you put in walls 500, they can get the book for $5 and that includes shipping.
Yeah, and Jill just put it up there. I don't know if it'll work with www. Um, so if you do HTTPS, that's I had a problem one time with somebody couldn't get in with the www. So
Oh. Oh yeah, it doesn't work. Huh. I I think I know why. I can help you with that, but so yeah, you have to type in the eight. I'll change that on the thing here. So it's HTTPS. Hang on, let me edit this. I'll put it up here. HTTPS colon slash slash bespoke. Yeah, type it in that way and it will work. If somebody will type that into the comments exactly that way, that would be great. Then it'll be clickable from the comments. So, Dan, what made you decide to? I mean, there's a gazillion books out there on this topic. What made you decide I'm going to throw my hat in that ring?
Legacy.
Yeah.
I wanted to make a difference to somebody, and one person acts on this and gets their act together on having a plan in place, and it makes a difference. Then it was worth the process. Of course, I am in the I am a specialist in long-term care insurance, and so uh, I I hope it can help some of my clients or help people become my clients. But you know, I the numbers are incredibly terrible. 14% of people over 50 have a plan, and 70% of them are going to need care after they turn 65. Now, as
Wow.
you pointed out, Ken, 100% of them will die.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
so, but
That's true.
70% will need care, and it might not just be the other guy.
Right.
So,
So
place when your next door neighbor needs care and you go like, oh gosh, I hope that never happens to me, and you start worrying about it. What
right.
happens when you start thinking about something all the time? When you start
Right.
thinking about something all the time, that's what happens to you. The
Yeah.
power of attraction is positive, the power of attraction is negative.
Amen. Hey, Nick just bought a copy of your book.
Hey, thank you, Nick.
That's awesome. Nick's a good dude.
He is a
So
great.
so use the code walls500 and you'll get the book for $5 and that includes shipping. So Dan, let me ask you this, and this will be the final question that I have, and that is, in your opinion, in your years of being on this planet, gaining significant amounts of wisdom along the way, what do you think stops people from having everything in life? Like having, I'm talking about the money, the freedom, the love, the relationships, the everything. What do you think stops people from having it all in life?
That's a great question, but there's probably a very easy answer, and that is that their programming is off.
Mm,
That they've been programmed to be small.
mm,
That they've been programmed to that maybe they've accomplished everything they can accomplish. Maybe they're very accomplished and they've done everything um, prior to that. They've made millions of dollars. They've coached millions of people in sports or whatever. That now they're not. They've done what they needed to do, and that's it. If you're here, there's a reason that you're here, and uh, you need to find that destiny and embrace that destiny. And people need something to continue to grow. Always be striving for something, whether it be um, on your physical basis, keeping yourself in good shape, whether it be a new um, pursuit. You're unique in this world. Everybody on this call, everybody that's going to ever see this tape is unique, and they have a unique set of tools and a unique set of opportunities in front of them, and you just need to embrace those.
agreed. And some of your programming just exposed itself when you said anybody that ever sees this tape. It's not.
Well, how
It's
else are they going to hear me
not.
say that?
It's not a tape.
Oh, that's true. Well,
This digital recording. No, listen, Dan, I love you, dude. You're like a brother to me, a much, much older brother. Um, I know, and I appreciate you being in my life and being a part of the Grow Live Academy with I just everything that you stand for and do. You're an amazing dude. You're a good friend.
Well, thank you. You too. I've met some amazing people all because of you. And,
Thank you.
I plan to allow that to continue.
Good. Good. Well, we are grateful for you, brother. So everybody watching, go to or listening on the podcast networks, http https://
//
be
not backslash.
what?
Isn't that a forward slash?
I don't know. They'll figure it out. Bespoke, BESPOKE -LTC.com. Go over there and enter the code on checkout. The coupon code is WALLS, WALLS 500, and you can get Dan's book for $5. $5, and that includes shipping. I'm assuming that's for U.S. people only.
U.S. people, that is. Well, actually, I don't have it set up that way. So if you're out of the U.S., it's still going to go to you.
Whoa.
So
yeah, $45 to ship it to the middle of Indonesia.
There we go.
That's awesome.
Now, I would just say this. This is built around United States laws and United States options. So if you're outside the United States, buyer beware.
Nick said China.
China. Hey, that's China.
Yes.
So anybody that's listening on a cassette deck, that's the website that you need to go to. So I'm showing my age there.
They're probably not.
Or an 8-track.
Probably not. Just saying. Maybe they're listening to it on a 45 record.
Hey.
Yeah.
Spin the hits.
That's right. Thank you all for watching. Thank you for sharing. Thank you, Dan, for being here and sharing your story and your wisdom. And everybody, make sure you go follow Dan on all the social medias. Go to his website, bespoke-lt.com. And
LTC.
That's what I said.
Okay.
LTC. Long-term care. Go over and check it out. Get the books, $5. And thank you. We'll see you all very soon. Dan, thank you so much, man. I appreciate you.
Thank you, Ken. And thanks everybody for your time.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Guys, we'll see you later.